Hello, my name is Catherine Yetz, the AGS tutor at Wisconsin Lutheran College. Today we'll be discussing paper structure and the thesis statement. Almost every paper is going to have these four essential elements: an introduction, a thesis statement, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Your introduction briefly introduces the concept you are about to talk about. How you choose to introduce your topic is up to you. I will briefly explain 5 types of introductions. The funnel introduction reveals background information on the topic. It starts off general, then becomes more specific. The dramatic introduction gives an eyewitness account, or the writer can give a personal story that relates to the topic. The quotation introduction gives a famous quote related to the topic and springs an introduction to the topic off the quote. The turnabout introduction talks about the opposite of the topic, which then moves into the topic. And the inspiration introduction talks about an event or circumstance that inspired the writer to choose the topic. The main point of an introduction is to lead into your thesis. The thesis is basically what your paper is about and can help outline your body paragraphs. It is a declarative sentence. The thesis will usually include a main topic, claim, and evidence. The evidence is what will be used in the paper to support the claim. Consider the thesis of a generic 5-paragraph essay, which includes a title, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. The thesis would read something like this: blank conveys blank because of blank, blank, and blank. The list of 3 evidences then gives structure to the rest of your paper, with each body paragraph using the evidence in the thesis to defend the claim you are posing about the topic. We will be discussing 3 types of theses: expository, which explains a topic; analytical, which answers how or why; and argumentative, which argues for or against a topic. Alright, now let's go over a more concrete example of how the thesis structures your paper with an expository thesis. The topic is classroom management. The claim is, in regards to classroom management, teachers who have a proactive approach are successful. What proves this? The evidence. In regards to classroom management, teachers who have a proactive approach are successful because studies show that telling students about behavioral expectations, what the consequences will be if these expectations are not followed, and how following these expectations will benefit them in the real world, prevents students from acting out in the first place. Now that the thesis has been established, the rest of the paper is outlined. Body paragraph 1 will discuss the proactive approach of telling students about behavioral expectations, while body paragraph 2 will discuss the proactive approach of telling students what the consequences are of not following behavioral expectations. Then body paragraph 3 will discuss the proactive approach of telling students how following these behavioral expectations will benefit them in the real world. Your paper is all set up for you by the thesis. How convenient! Another way of writing your thesis is to have a thesis that is specific but more open-ended, which works best for expansive research papers. An analytical thesis is specific yet broad, since it does not always specify the evidence to be used. We'll use the same topic of classroom management. We will then go into the claim. The claim is, an analysis of literature on classroom management reveals that new teachers struggle with knowing how to successfully and proactively manage their classroom. And then we need the evidence, because they were not taught these skills in their prep programs, which directly affects student achievement. This thesis still structures the body paragraph, but leaves a little wiggle room. The first set of body paragraphs will give evidence of how new teachers are struggling with classroom management. Then there will be a few paragraphs about how teacher prep programs fail to teach teachers how to be proactive in classroom management. Then the last set of body paragraphs reveal through example evidence how this is affecting student achievement. Then there's the argumentative thesis. In most argumentative papers, Both sides of the debate are given or terms are defined to start. This should be in the thesis. Then the author takes a stance telling which side they are on. We'll use the same topic of classroom management. The argument is many critics debate if teachers should be authoritative, authoritarian, or permissive disciplinarians in their classroom. Then we have to take a stance in our argument. But research reveals that teachers are more successful being authoritative. The evidence? Since students need both care and discipline as well as respect for their teacher to get them in gear. Once again, the paper is structured by the thesis. It begins by having a section that defines types of disciplinarians. Then the second section shows why authoritative is the best discipline to have, with paragraphs explaining how students need care, explaining why they need discipline, and explaining the importance of students respecting their teacher. The body paragraphs are the meat of the paper, the biggest part of the meal. The meal plan is how paragraphs are to be structured. There will be a separate video going into the meal plan in more detail, but for now, just remember the acronym. M stands for main idea, E is for evidence, A is for analysis, and L is for link to the thesis. Last is the conclusion. The conclusion begins with the thesis rephrased. The conclusion can then go on to briefly sum up the main points of the paper and suggest further research or have a call to action. A cheat to rephrasing the thesis is to say your thesis backwards, flipping your thesis. Using one of the theses we've been working with, the thesis, an analysis of literature on classroom management reveals that teachers struggle with knowing how to successfully and practically manage their classroom because they were not taught these skills in their prep program, which directly affects student achievement, is flipped to student achievement is affected by novice teachers not knowing how to successfully and proactively manage their classroom since teachers were not taught classroom management skills in their prep program. Almost any thesis can be flipped around to create a similar but different focused thesis. In the end, for this thesis and paper, student achievement is the goal and focus, the big bang at the end of the paper, so it makes sense it is the focus of the rephrased thesis. The conclusion can then go on to briefly sum up the main points of the paper and suggest further studies, or end with a call to action. There are do's and don'ts for the conclusion. We've gone over a few of the do's in the previous slide. For the don'ts, first off, avoid beginning your conclusion with "in conclusion." The thesis restated signals the conclusion. Second, do not bring new evidence in your conclusion. You should not be quoting anything from your sources or saying anything too new and off from the points already made. Third, do not repeat everything you just said verbatim. Summarize your main points, but don't make a laundry list. Last, do not give a save the world ending. Do not say things like, by doing this, the world will be a better place, or this is our one chance to save the world. Avoid becoming corny or far-fetched. Most likely, the topic you are discussing is not going to save the world. We will now recap what we have learned. There are 4 essential elements to a paper. First comes the introduction, which ends with the thesis statement. The thesis statement outlines the body paragraphs. The body paragraphs are in meal format. The conclusion is last, which begins with the thesis rephrased and then sums up the paper. Thank you for listening attentively. If you have further questions or would like to meet one-on-one to work on your paper, please contact me, Catherine Yetz, by campus email. Just click on the duck's belly on this PowerPoint and an email will pop up for you. Feel free to go to the referenced websites for more information. Have a lovely morning or evening.